Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove. Um, I just want to remind everybody before we get into this very cool episode that we got on the books here, that if you have a story that you'd like to share with us, um, be like our guest today and send me an email because this is this is how she got on the show. She went to the From the Shadows podcast.com, hit the contact button, and sent me an email. So you could do it that way, or you can find us at From the Shadows podcast on Facebook or our forum page on Facebook called After the Shadows, or you can find me at Shane Grove Author on Instagram, or our From the Shadows podcast Instagram page. All those ways are a good way to get our attention and send us a message. We like them all, and especially like it when we hear from our listeners, and especially listeners with stories to share. And that leads us to someone from the Buckeye State here in our backyard. Uh, Megan, welcome to the From the Shadows podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, so Megan, I mean, I'm just going to tell everybody up front. I thought you were just going to have just a rum dum, run of the mill Bigfoot story, and that was going to be it. And then I talked to you today, and it's like, holy smokes, you were holding out on me when you sent an email, and and we started undoing layers of the onion, and there's just all kinds of goodies I think we're going to talk about tonight.
Oh,
So,
trust me, that email, like, I had to cut it off.
okay.
I kept going. I'm like, okay, this is way too long. I'm getting way too into this.
well, well, let's just start on. Let's get into what you emailed us about and tell us like where you're at in Ohio within reason. You know, don't want to give everything away. You don't have to, but just kind of set up the story for us and kind of tell us what happened and you know, let's go.
Okay. I live in like Butler County area, close to Preble County. So it's like Southwest Ohio. And I started with Bigfoot with the Legend of Boggy Creek. I think I still have it on VHS down in my basement, but me and my brother used to watch it all the time at my grandma's, and I just was fascinated with it. So, and then, growing up, I would always watch like Bigfoot shows and everything. I mean, I always thought of them being though like out west or, Washington, like that area. So I never imagined really like them being in Ohio. And it was about, I had moved into my grandmother's house when my daughter was a year old and she's 13 now. So me and her father lived there for about a year. Well, we were out in the woods a couple times, and he had, knocked on a tree, and we thought we heard knocking back, but I kind of just blew it off, like, it's probably someone else out here, or um, I for sure didn't think it was Bigfoot. So, it was about maybe 2 years later, he had moved out and I had worked 3 to 11. So I remember getting off work that night, and as I'm driving home, it was like fall time, like I didn't really need a jacket. Like the moon was so bright out. You could see like I didn't even need a flashlight to take the dog out. So when I got home, um now where I live is like there's only about I think 6 or 7 houses up on that street, and it I'm pretty close to like the Great Miami River. I can actually see it from like my front porch, and then behind our house like is nothing but like woods. So I get home and I go inside, grab my dog, put him on a leash, and my dog is a caterpillar leopard, so he was over 90 pounds. Wasn't really afraid of anything, extremely protective over me. And I take him out, and we're walking down the driveway to the road. Now, across from my house, there is a barn that I think was probably built in like the 30s. So we get to where we're in front of the barn, and it's like this just, I've never felt fear like that ever in my life. Like the fear just came over me and my dog, and he was like whining and jumping and literally like trying to pull me back to the house. Like I've never seen him act like that ever. And I really just can't, like, I mean, the fear that I was like, it just came out of nowhere. And I look up, and like my dog, I mean, like I can see that he's looking at something as he's whining and trying to pull me back. I look up, and like kind of right in front next to that barn, I see something just huge. Like it's like kneeling down, like almost like it's eating something. And I know it wasn't a human. I know, it was too big. It was hairy, and like I said, like the night, it was so bright out that night. So, on a normal night, I wouldn't have been able to see anything out there. But like that night was just so bright out. And immediately, like when I looked at it, it was just even more fear came over me. And my dog literally, like, I turned around and was literally running back to my house. I didn't turn back around. I, it, like, I didn't think I was going to get to the house fast enough. And, um, like my heart's racing just now thinking about it. So we get into the house, and I lock the door. I turn the lights out. Like me and my dog go straight to my bedroom, lock my bedroom door. I didn't, like, the curtains were closed. I turned the bedroom light off. I sat on my bed with my dog, like he's shaking, and I'm like in the fetal position, like, oh my God, what is that out there? And it just, I mean, I finally went to sleep that night. And it was just, I don't know. The next day when I woke up, it was like I knew for a fact that it had to have been Bigfoot. There was no other, I mean, nothing else it could have been. And it just, like, my dog is what, like I had, and we just had to have him put down. He was 13. He had a bunch of medical issues, but his entire life that I had him, I never have ever seen him act like that ever, except for that time. And it was just, I I don't even know.
So that's so, so the fear. I mean, I can tell you're still kind of shook up about it,
Yeah,
obviously. So to go back, so you never saw the thing stand up. It just was still crouched.
yeah, like it was, what I was assuming it was doing was like it had killed something, and it was like, or it was killing something, but like it was like picking something up and putting it in its mouth. And like I want to say that it turned to look at me, but before I could even make eye contact with it, I like my dog literally was, I mean, about dragging me back to the house.
Wow. So did your dog? I mean, did your dog start to growl or anything, or did it just?
No,
Did,
he was just, I mean, scared to death. Like it, like when I told you, like, a couple weeks prior to that, we had that, I'm assuming it was a coyote. It was a gigantic coyote. It was bigger than my dog. Um, and it was all black fur on it. It didn't have, it wasn't like it didn't look like a normal brown furred coyote.
mm-hmm.
Um, and it had walked up, it was nighttime out, and I was walking him. It just walked up right up on us. Like it wasn't growling. It wasn't, trying to attack. It was like almost trying to like lure my dog away with it. But like, and you know, my dog wasn't scared. He started growling at it. Um and really like my dog would growl at anything. I mean, he barked at my husband every single day when he got home from work. Like he'd never seen him before a day in his life. But it was, I think like like I was already afraid, but then seeing my dog like whining and just, I mean, he was jumping in the air to where like, we're like eye level, like trying to get my attention and just pulling at the leash and whining, and it, he scared me even more.
So it's almost like he didn't want to make any noise and alert the whatever
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
Now, is there a chance that what that was you saw was it that big black, you know,
Oh no,
wolf
no,
or
no,
what?
because this
Okay,
thing, like I could tell that it was like that thing when it walked up on us, it walked on like all fours, you know what I mean? Like
hmm
I assumed it was like a black furred coyote, and then when I realized like they aren't in Ohio, um, but they
not
are
really,
bigger than a
not
regular
really.
coyote. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and I'm like, well, this is really odd. But I mean, we've seen coyotes out here numerous times. I've never seen one bigger than my dog. You know what I mean? Like
mm.
close maybe, but this thing was just massive. And but the thing that was out there by the barn, and like I said, it was so light out that night that I could see like it's like I could see the entire body of it. I could see the arms and the legs and the head and whatever it was eating. Um, because it was like down on one knee and it had one leg like kind of propped up and it was pulling apart whatever it had.
So do you think it even knew you guys were out there?
I don't know, because like I mean my dog didn't really make much noise and I didn't make it. Like we'd walked like through the grass, and it could have maybe it might have come out of the woods because the like it wasn't too far from the tree line. So like it could have came out of the woods chasing whatever it had and bent down right there to like start like eating it when we kind of walked, you know what I mean? Like we kind of met
hmm
at the same like time almost.
Now, how far do you think you were away from that?
Uh Probably, I don't know, uh, 20 yards maybe. I'm not really good with like distance wise.
Yeah, I know. And I asked that because um, here's what I find interesting when I hear other like Bigfoot accounts and other creature accounts is when somebody says, I was like 400 yards away. And I'm sitting there thinking, 400 yards away, I couldn't see anything at 400
Right,
yards
yeah.
away, and I try that when I'm out on the mail route. Okay, I'll like look at a distance to
Hmm.
see like there's a part of my mail route where there's a railroad track, a couple like a crossing a couple blocks away, and I'll stand there sometimes and just look down the street and think, okay, if someone was 8 or 9 foot tall, what would it look like that far away against a rare, because if my frame of reference would be like the railroad crossing. And I'm
Right.
like, so I try to put myself into some of the eyewitnesses shoes and say, man, okay, how would how would you judge that distance unless you actually went out, and unless you were a hunter. I mean, a hunter would
Mm.
obviously have a much better grasp on distance just from lining up a shot or something. And but yeah, so I mean, it's just interesting. Did you go back out like the next morning at all and try to see if you could find any evidence of it being there, like a footprint or something dead or anything?
I do remember walking out there and I don't remember seeing anything, but like I mean it was grass. It wasn't really it wasn't really any mud, like the area that it was in, and like there's a fence really like that is at that tree line. And so like I didn't want to go back into like I didn't want to have to climb the fence and go back in there. But like I mean, even just walking up there, my dog was still kind of skittish. I was terrified. And like I kind of took, I kind of looked around and I'm like, okay, and we like walked back. Um, I just was like, I mean, and because where it was at, like, I can see like it's close to the barn, so like I've got that to reference to it. And then there's, a couple like small trees like right in front of the barn. And I just like what I know is that it should not have been there, like nowhere near the size of what I was looking at if that was a human.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
and I only like I mean it was just so like what was so weird is that the nighttime, like it was just so bright that night. Like I just remember driving home from work like, wow, it's so bright out tonight. Like the moon was like full and it was super bright.
well,
And
anybody that lives out in the country knows absolutely what you're saying. Like people live in town may not ever notice that, but
yeah,
when you live out in the country, and it's one of those nights where it is super bright and it feels like you could like read a book outside,
yeah,
like even though it's not really that bright, but it feels that way sometimes. And
yeah. Because
it
I mean,
does.
it's normally like super dark. I mean, I would, I'd have like a huge flashlight with me when I would take my dog out to walk him.
Um, so I wanted to ask, so like you said a couple years earlier when your child's father was there living with you and he was knocking on trees and stuff, like were you guys doing that, just like messing around, thinking, seeing if there was a Bigfoot out there, or was that
No,
just
well, we went out there like mushroom hunting,
okay?
and I don't even know what made him pick up um a a log and hit the tree. Like we hadn't really discussed it or anything. He just picked it up and like started knocking on the tree, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I just wanted to try something," and it like I mean,
So
we heard
he'd
knocking
been
back, but it
watching
was
Finding Bigfoot is what he'd been doing.
apparently, yeah.
But
And I mean, he looked at me and he was like, "Did you just hear that wood knocking?" And I was like, "Yeah, I
what are you
heard it,
talking?
but I just,
What are you
like,
talking about?
right." And I still had, I'm like, "There's not Bigfoot is not in Ohio." Like, I'm like, "There's no Bigfoot here." And so, like, I just, I kind of played it off, and it just, yeah,
So okay, so at the first time when you guys are doing that, you're just dismissing it, and so now you have this experience. Um, did you start asking questions, or did you tell anybody? Did you try to find out if there was some history in the area of sightings?
not really. I mean, I was like 21, 22. Like I was into Bigfoot, but I had like so much else going on in my life at the time. Like, um, I just wasn't really interested in that at the moment. You
I'm
know what I
sorry,
mean? Like,
I'm sorry, Megan. That's not an excuse.
but like, I mean, like now, I love Bigfoot. I love anything I can watch that's about Bigfoot or any kind of like, monsters or whatever. I'm like all into that. But, and my mom still lives like so when my husband now, I think me and him got together like about a year after that had happened. And, he had moved into that house with me, and then we bought the house across the street from it when it came up for sale because my mom and dad wanted to move into my grandparents' house, the house that I was living in. So, and then we lived there for another 5 years. We just moved 2 years ago into our new house, and it's only like a minute away from our other house. But, I had put up like the last year that we were there, I had put up a trail cam, and it never really because it was after, well, like I told you earlier about that other coyote that I seen
Yeah.
when I let my dog, and at this point my dog was going outside. Like I had I had a remote collar on him, and so as long as he had that collar on, he wouldn't run off. Like, I didn't have to buzz him. All I had to do was hit the noise, and he would stop dead, whatever he was doing, and come right back. So, I didn't walk him on a leash anymore, and when I let him out, I could tell that there was, something out there because he was like in like defense mode, like wanting to attack something. And I got him back in the house, and I heard some coyotes. Well, I grabbed the flashlight, and when I shined it out there towards the tree line is when I saw the coyote, and it like was just staring at me. And it slowly walked back to the tree line, like to its right, and stared at me the entire time it got to the tree line. And it like when I walked back in, I told my husband, I said, there was a coyote out there that was just staring into my soul. It stared at me the entire time it walked back to that tree line. Why? Like, I couldn't understand. Like, usually they would just take off running when they would hear us, or, me shining a flashlight out there. But that coyote did not. It literally was like slowly walking back to the tree line and staring at me the entire time.
And so this is a different time though than the big black one that you saw.
Yes. And I honestly, I don't know what color this one was, but it, like, but besides like that one that walked up on me and my dog, and then, and I wasn't really paying attention. I was just walking him, trying to get him to go to the bathroom. And then all of a sudden it was like, I look over and there's this like gigantic coyote, like, kind of looking at my dog and moving around. Like, I can't even really explain the way it was acting, but like my dog started growling at it, and I had to pull him away. But I've heard, coyotes will, like try to, like, a female will come out and like try to lure a dog back to the pack. And so that's what I just assumed it was doing. But then the next
But
time when I saw that one, it was, so that's when I started with the trail cam.
yeah, but they usually don't do that if there's a person out there.
Right.
Like any experience I've had with coyotes and seen them, from moving out in the country, especially if they are seen by somebody, they kind of put their head down and just kind of get out of there.
Right. And the other ones that were with they did take off. And because sometimes we would hear them howling, and I'm like, I'm like, good Lord, it sounds like there's like 20 of them out there, which I know them, they sound it when they're howling, it sounds like there's more than there actually are. But and we would hear them all the time because we lived right next to a creek. And then, like I said, the Great Miami River was, we could see it from our house. Because our house was up on a huge hill, and then you went down the hill, and then it was like flat land to the river. But that creek that ran alongside my house, that's where like they had went to, and it just, I was so uneasy. Like, I didn't have like the fear when that coyote was like staring at me, which I'm assuming that's what it was with a coyote. I can't really explain how it was just staring straight at me. We did not break eye contact the entire time till it got to the woods.
That would be unnerving. I could see how that'd be unnerving. Now, so I'm assuming then you told your husband about your experience then across the road.
Yes.
So,
which he kind of already knew. Like, I had told him about like what had happened. He's not really like, he doesn't believe it. He doesn't not believe in Bigfoot, but he doesn't get into it like I do. Like, he just, he's kind of like, yeah, Megan. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't really care whether you believe me or not. I know what I saw. So whether anyone believes me, I really don't care, because I know how I felt and what I saw that night, and nothing is ever going to change my mind.
well, so have you So, I know you gave me the excuse that you were young and had other things happening.
Right.
But since then, have you done some research about the area? And did you say anything to your mom and dad or anything? Because,
I
right, you said it was your grandma's house. So I'm
yeah.
assuming she must have lived there for a while.
Yeah, her and my grandpa moved in before I was even born. And I don't really remember, like, I do remember one night waking up and it was a loud bang on their house, and like their house was built in the 30s, so, and it was a brick house. I mean, when they had a back door put in, the people that put the back door in told my grandma that house could probably withstand a tornado. It was built so, you know, good.
Yeah, yeah, Bill.
Um,
So yeah.
we hear this loud noise and we go outside and there, like, it was like a cannonball, and we still have it over there. And it was like laying right by like the door, and my grandma was like, we don't know if someone threw it at the house. Like, we have no idea where it came from, but it literally looks. I mean, it's a cannonball, like a small cannonball that you shoot out of a cannon.
And it hit the
And
house?
yes, it hit the house because it made a
Jeez.
huge noise. And, like, I mean, my grandpa came running out, my grandma, me and my brother, and I was probably like 10 at the time. My brother was like 13 or 14. And there laid this cannonball like right next to the stairs to go into the house. And we don't like. I'm like, is that what hit the house? Like, we don't know, but I don't know what else could have made that noise.
Well,
And
obviously, I would think your grandparents would know if there was a cannonball sitting there before.
right. So, like, I and I don't really know if my grandparents had any other like weird experiences out there. Um the only thing, like, I've talked to a couple people before about a lady had asked me. I used to take care of her mother at a nursing home, and when we realized that we both lived out here, she had asked me one day if I had ever heard or seen the big black cat. And like I was like a kitty cat, and she's like, no, like the size of a leopard cat. And that's when I started telling her about that, that coyote that walked up on me. And I'm like, I know it wasn't a cat, but she had swore up and down that her and her daughter had seen it several times out there. And um I don't.
That's a weird. I mean, that's kind of weird that in the same area that you guys would see something big and black and
Right.
y- independent of one another, and then share it with one another. And
Yeah.
one thought it was a cat, and one thought it was you thought it was a big coyote.
Mhm.
And that's kind of crazy. Like, I hope you don't have family reunions and stuff out there, and everybody sleeps out in tents. Because it
No.
doesn't sound like a place. It doesn't sound like a place. But so you've never come across like any other like reports out there of Bigfoot?
I've never really like looked into it, and honestly, like up until like I had only ever told like my mom and my husband and my dad about what had happened to me and my dog that night. And like my dad does not believe in Bigfoot whatsoever, but this man he'll be scrolling on Facebook and he'll see a picture of 100-foot snake that you can tell was photoshopped, and he's like, "Oh my god, look at this 100-foot snake!" And I'm like, "Dad, seriously? You believe that because it's on the internet and you're seeing it, but you don't believe in Bigfoot?" Oh, Bigfoot ain't real. And I tell him all the time that one day I'm going to make it my life goal. I don't care if Bigfoot takes him, kidnaps him, whatever, but I'm going to prove to him one day that Bigfoot is real.
Wow, that's pretty. That's pretty cold blooded, right
It
there.
is. Because we get into it so much. And like, I don't know if he just does it to aggravate me, but like, he believes in like aliens, but he doesn't believe in Bigfoot. And I'm like, we get into it all the time. And I'm like, I don't know how you don't believe in Bigfoot, Dad. Like, the Native Americans,
Yeah, they,
Bigfoot was
they
here.
yeah. And
I'm like,
and and,
and he's
and
like, well, we'd know, they would have captured one. No, they wouldn't have. And the government is not. I don't think the government would allow us to catch one.
yeah, I can't
For
argue
whatever
with you.
reason,
Yeah.
you know, they, it's not going to happen.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
interesting.
look what happened during the pandemic. How like people like absolutely panicked and bought up every bit of toilet paper there was. Like that was the last thing on my mind was toilet paper when all that happened. But like the way people panic, like can you imagine if all of a sudden um
Well, I don't. Well, that's the strange thing is they came out and kind of admitted that we had UFOs in our possession during the pandemic, and people
mhm,
were panicked
yeah,
more over the pandemic than the fact that they admitted we had UFOs. It was just kind of like an after. Oh, really? You got UFOs? That's okay. I might have COVID. You know what
right.
I'm
They were too
saying?
worried about other things to like
Yeah,
even care
yeah.
about that. Like who cares
And
about UFOs right now? I don't want COVID.
and I think that's a natural human reaction is you're worried more about, okay, what's happening in my house today? Am I going to be able to pay the phone bill? Am I going to be able
Right.
to make the car payment? Does the yard need mowed? I got to have all that done because even if the aliens do come, I want my yard to look nice. I want to have
Right.
something to cook for. I mean, it is because what does that mean if the aliens come, or what does that mean if Bigfoot's in your in the national park 4 counties over? It doesn't really affect people on a day-to-day basis. But I
Mm-mm.
think that at some point, though, the government doesn't give the majority of the population enough credit that they're going to go on with their lives and you know and and be able to deal with it. If it's
Yeah.
if that's the fact. And back to the cannonball hitting the side of the house. That's a typical Bigfoot um, behavior that you hear all the time. Them throwing rocks, and
Right.
not like little pebbles. They're throwing good sized rocks at people or towards things to get people's attention. And maybe they wanted to get somebody's attention, you know. But
Hmm.
it is interesting. You're there by the little Miami River, and that is also one of the big thoughts is that these creatures use the rivers to travel. That's like their highway where they can travel from one end of the state into another state into where. I mean, obviously they don't know they're in Ohio versus
Right.
Kentucky
Yeah.
or whatever. They're just, well, but that's a convenient way for them to travel and stay kind of out of sight. And sure, okay, I'm traveling along the river and I'm hungry. I'm going to come up and to a farmyard, to a barnyard, and maybe grab something to eat or something, or throw a cannonball at the people in the house
Right.
just for fun. I
Yeah.
mean, but no, I think that's interesting, and I gotta hand it to you. I mean, um, you're pretty brave out there, with crazy coyotes and possible Bigfoots running around. I mean, um, that's pretty brave to still
Yeah.
be out
Well,
there.
let's just say after like I, I now carry like when I would take my dog out, I always like after the after those incidences, like I usually always have my gun on me. For my protection. I'm only 5'1", 130 pounds, so it wouldn't take much. And although like at some point like my dog mate like helped me feel safe because I usually wasn't outside during dark when it was dark out unless I was out there with my dog. And
Yeah.
you know, it but I still would carry my gun just in case. And I mean, strangers, or I
Hmm.
mean, if a pack of coyotes did come up on him, what at least I could fend them off something. So I will say that. And I so like in that creek bed that runs along my house or along that house, I would go out there and like dig for jars all the time.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
collect like mason jars, and there was I mean, there's a million of them broken down in the creek, and I've found whole ones. I've found all different kinds of jars, but that like I got the idea one day because when I was sitting out there like digging, I get in my own world, but like there's so many times that I felt like I was being watched, and there's no one out there. Like it's just me. I know my neighbors. The behind us, the guy doesn't actually live in that house. He go like my dad knows him. He goes there like once a day, and that's it. And he lives in, I think, Hunter or something. So actually no one actually lives back there, but like I would just get such a creepy weird feeling that like, and I would stop what I was doing and look up and look around to make sure that like no one was there. um but so then that's when I started with the trail cam, and it I know I was doing it right, but like I would leave it out there for a couple days, and like it it would take pictures of me when I left, like after I got it, positioned on the tree, and then I know it was running the whole time because I would have pictures of where like I would come up to it to take it down, but there would only be like so many photos. Like um out of like a 3-day stretch, I got like two pictures of a raccoon and a picture of a possum, and I had it set to like sensitive, so it would take a picture of like anything. And at one point, I told my husband, I'm like, I know I put this trail camera facing this way, and it like when I went down out there to get it, it was not facing that way. Like it was facing a total opposite direction. And like
Like
the
so,
pictures,
like
like
somebody had
they
turned it.
didn't. Yes,
Like
the pictures like didn't make sense either. Like one picture was of that way, and I'm like trying to explain to him, I'm like, look, this picture is like facing this tree. I know you can like in night vision you can still see the tree. I'm like, but this next picture that it takes is not, the tree is not in it. And he's like, oh, it probably just slid down or something. And I'm like, no, I know I had it
I
strapped
know,
to that tree. It was not moving.
because trail cams, they slide all over the place if
Right.
nobody touches
Right.
them.
So like and it just, I never could get anything like, not like, there would just be blurry pictures. And um I never even got like a coyote on there. And like I would hear them out there at nighttime, and I'm like, oh yes, I know there's gonna be a picture of at least a coyote on that trail cam. I'd go get it, and it would just be, there'd be a couple good ones, and there'd be me coming and getting it and me leaving, and it in between it was just, I don't know. It was really strange. It was almost like it was turned off for like, after the first night. It's like it shut off for 2 or 3 days until I came back to get it, and then it magically came back on because it had pictures of me taking it down.
That's kind of weird. I mean, that's there's no
Yeah.
other ex. That is kind of weird, but that is kind of par for the course. I mean, you hear that all the time when you listen to people's accounts of having these creatures around. Is they don't, they you can have trail cams up everywhere and you just don't catch anything, you know,
Yeah.
and they get messed with. Like you said, they get turned around or they get knocked down or something. So I'll tell you. I mean, hey, look, you're trying. I got to hand
Yeah.
it to you. You're trying. You're trying. But so do you actively? I mean, you're not. Are you going out actively trying to catch or find something, or are you just satisfied if you catch something in the area there? You'll feel like you had a big victory.
um I don't know. I like, would I love to catch something or even see something again? Yes. I don't want to feel that feeling that I felt ever again.
Hmm.
um and like, I don't know. I don't know it. I've heard people like say, like they've, like when I've watched stuff about Bigfoot, they've had that same like fear come over them. And then there's times where like, and just like people, there's bad people and there's good people. I think it's kind of like the same with Bigfoots. Like I think, you know, I'm sure some of them are, um, not aggressive and not, trying to cause harm. And then
Hmm.
there's, maybe some rogue ones or younger ones that are are they're aggressive. They I don't, it's who
Well,
knows.
I know what you're saying. I mean, if if what some of the prevailing theory is that they're more man-like than they are animal,
Hmm.
then they would be like man, where you run the gamut of, there's nice people, there's terrible people, there's in between people. That's just the way it is. You're gonna get the good, you're gonna get the good and the bad when it comes to being part man. You know.
Right. And I mean, animals are like that too.
Yeah.
You can have a crazy dog, and you can have a well calm chill dog.
Well, let me tell you something. On the mail route, they're all crazy dogs. I'm just gonna tell you. I'm just gonna tell you. Um. So okay. So I wanna. I mean, look, we're moving right along here. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, holy smokes. We we really
Yeah.
we we really this is a good conversation about one woman's um, confrontation with with Bigfoot out there. I
Yeah.
mean, I love it. I love it. Um, but I do want to. I want to share with everybody a couple of other stories that you shared with me that have nothing. Well, depending on what camp you're in, that have nothing to do with Bigfoot, or they have everything to do with Bigfoot. And I think before I have you tell them, well, so where you're at is pretty close to Dayton, Ohio, right? I mean,
Yes.
and for everybody who is into the paranormal, they know that outside of Dayton, Ohio, is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is known in the UFO circles as probably most likely the first place that the Roswell crash was taken to. It's what many believe. It was taken
Hmm.
and stored in a hangar, and over the years there were other crafts and maybe recovered aliens. So this area that you're in, I've had other guests that have had UFO experiences and strange craft experiences, and you just you don't know. Okay, is it something? Is it really something extraterrestrial? Is it something from the Air Force Base um, that they're testing or whatever? So I want you to share the one experience that you had where you saw the small craft, and just see
Okay.
if we have anybody out there in the listening audience from the area that maybe had a similar experience.
So this happened in Monroe, Ohio, and it was probably 2005, 2006. I graduated in 2007, and me and my daughter's father got together, I think, when I was a sophomore. So it had to have been like my sophomore or junior year. We were driving down a road, and it was real curvy, and there was like some factories, and then there was, after the factories, it was like houses lined on both sides of the street, but on behind both houses, it's like nothing but like fields and trees. So me and him are driving, and all of a sudden we both kind of look up, and I'm like, "What is that?" And he, like we both have acknowledged that we both see this, and it's like kind of hovering over a house. And so, like, and the speed limit, I think, on that road's only like 35, 40 maybe. So, I've already slowed down quite a bit, and like it looked like like a really big drone, but at the time, I mean, didn't even know what a drone was. I still had a flip phone. It, and it never dawned on me to take my phone out and take pictures, which I don't know what kind of pictures I would have gotten anyways with that flip phone. But so I'm looking at him, and I'm not stopped, but I've slowed down quite a bit, and we're getting like closer to it, and it's still like hovering there. Well, I get even further towards it, and all of a sudden, it just like it like zigzagged, and it like slowly started to go, and because it was almost like it had realized that like we had seen it, like we were staring at it, like what is this thing flying over this house? And but then when it, it started to move back, and then all of a sudden it zigzagged and it just took off. Like I've never seen anything fly so fast, and the movement that it did, I mean, you'd have to be like a professional drone flyer to like even do the moves that it had done, and then it was just gone. And we both looked at each other, and I was like, "Oh my god, was that a UFO?" And he's like, "I think so." We both were like shooken up about it, and I'm like, "We just saw a UFO!" Like, and like, and it was like we didn't get any pictures of it. Like it happened, and like, and then it was gone.
It's
And
in so I just want to say, but you keep referring to it as a drone now because
right,
that's the closest thing you can relate it to. Back then, you didn't even know what a drone was.
right, no,
Yeah, because I don't think, and I think I looked it up just to kind of have a frame of reference. I mean, it was only that the 2005, 2006 time frame where people actually started getting commercial drones that they could fly and getting licenses for them. So, I mean, is there a possibility that somebody had a had a had one of the first drones and you just happened to see it? I mean,
what,
okay,
like,
in
well, and
Dayton,
it
outside of
was like
Dayton,
I mean,
Ohio.
it was a circular, like it was circular. It wasn't like gigantic, but like, I say drone because like it was small. It wasn't like as small as a drone, but like it wasn't like some big, big ass spaceship. But
It wasn't as big
it
as an
it was
airplane. It
right.
wasn't as
I
big.
mean, it was
Like,
probably as
yeah,
big as my Saturn that I was driving. I had like a little white four-door Saturn.
okay.
Um,
So then it
but
was
like
possible it could have had people, or it could have had somebody in it flying it. If
right,
I mean, because you're sitting in a Saturn driving. Well, let's be honest. A Saturn really drove you. You didn't drive a
right.
Saturn, but but so it wasn't like a little like a just this little plate sized or pizza box sized thing out there with a. It was much bigger. It was at least big
Right.
enough to get your attention. Okay,
Yeah.
and then when you say it flew away, now did it fly up in the sky? Did it fly just away from you and disappear, or how did
Well,
it?
once we had came to a stop, it kind of like had started to move back away from the house, like on the same, like, it didn't get higher or lower. It was just moving like back. And
Like towards the
um
fields, like
yes.
behind. Okay,
Yeah, and like away from us. And you know, he's telling me to, like go forward, so we can try to get closer. And because we knew some people that lived on that street, so it wasn't, we were somewhat concerned that like from that. But and we had asked them, but no one had seen anything. I mean, I don't even remember seeing another car on that road when it had happened. um and who knows, someone could have seen something, but at the time didn't. No one wants to sound crazy. Oh yeah, I saw that thing flying around out there, you know but it moved back, and then all of a sudden, like, as I inched further, it was like from like it moved back, and then it just zigzagged and took off in like a straight up, like not straight up, but like I can't even like, I don't know, it was just gone.
like
You know
maybe
what I mean? Like,
not straight up, but maybe like an angle away from you or
yes.
something.
But the
Okay.
zigzag that it did and how fast it did it, I mean, it was like, holy shit. Like, we had never seen anything move like that, you know what I mean? And it,
And I think I asked you, did you see any lights on it, or it was just
well, it wasn't dark out all the way. Like, I mean, it was still, the sun was still in the sky. It was setting, but so like even if it did have lights on it, I don't know if we would have been able to see him or been able to tell, because like the sun was like beating, you know what I mean? Like,
hmm
it was, there wasn't really any darkness. I mean, it was, yeah. So
I find it so interesting because like the first time you told me this story, I immediately was like, this thing reacted to the fact that you guys saw it. I mean, that's immediately what came to me, is that it knew you saw it, and it was like, oh crap, I got to get out of
Yeah.
here. And that's what freaks me out, because like if you were, a drone back then, would that, if it was actually a drone, and it doesn't sound like it was, because I'd never seen a drone that big, just that somebody be flying around,
Right.
I mean, that's like a drone size that would be bombing an unknown target or unknown to us target in the Middle East. You know what I'm
Right. Yeah.
saying? Like a military grade drone. And why would that be flying over, hovering over somebody's house? Um, but it's just like, how would a drone back then that somebody was just messing around with even know that you guys were paying attention to it?
Right. Yeah.
That'd be pretty presumptuous of it, just to think that, you know.
And the way like it took off, like it would have been way out of power juice, like it wouldn't have made it nowhere near as far. I mean, like as far as we seen it go, and like, and it. I say drone because like when like my kids have them, and we'll take them outside and play with them, and like they just hover
Mm-hmm.
because we don't really know how to fly them, so they just kind of sit up in the air. So like that's what it reminded me of. And I'd had people before like, are you sure it wasn't a drone? And I'm like, no, drones weren't any like that. They weren't. I'd never seen one before back then. And yeah, it was similar to how it was hovering, but it was like way way bigger than any drone I've ever seen. And it when it took off, it was, I mean, and it didn't, I do remember this, there was no, I don't remember ever hearing any noise. Like it wasn't, there was
No
no
sound.
fan, no, like, right, like
Yeah.
no engine coming from it.
And usually you can hear a drone. You can hear the whirl of the propellers and stuff.
Right.
You know. And I'm sure the technology has gotten a lot better on the ones that people use now than they were back then. So, if
Right.
you're
Yeah.
hearing it now, so I look, like I said, I mean, you're so close to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could that have been something the government was testing? Could it have been an actual UFO that had been recovered and they were testing that out, to see if they could fly it? Or was it another, some aliens looking for a ship that might have been at Wright-Patterson? Who knows?
Right.
There's so many different things, but that's crazy. Um, but so the last thing, I wouldn't let you go into any detail because I wanted to, but kind of tell us what you
The last
started.
part that's the best.
The last part that's the best, that is directly tied into Wright-Patterson.
Okay. So I was still with my daughter's father, and um let's see, it had to have been after I graduated high school, because you know his like I was really close with his grandparents. We'd go over there all the time, and like his grandma kind of always had dementia. She would kind of talk out of her head here and there, but for the most part, she, you could hold a conversation with her. It was just like here and there. Well, after I graduated high school, she got really sick, and she was like, I want to say when this happened, she, I think, passed away like a couple weeks after. But she was a nurse, and she worked at Wright Pat, and I knew that she was a nurse and she had worked there, but she never really had talked about it. So during her, like when she got really sick, the dementia really took over. So, and with dementia, people are there, it's like they went back in time, and they don't really have any, they can't remember what happened 10 minutes ago, but it's like they're living 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and the things that she was saying, it was like we were in another time zone. But she started talking about when she worked at Right Pat, and there was a doctor there that she she was smitten for, and he was smitten for her, and this is how she actually got down to the underneath Right Pat. He the the doctor that she was close to, he's the one who took her down there, because I'm assuming he had, like, that was his area that he worked in. She was just kind of like a regular nurse there. Well, she started telling us about how, when he took her down there and to see the aliens. And and I mean, as she's like, she's telling us about it, and I'm like full into this, like trying to ask her questions, and everyone else is just, like, she's got dementia, like okay, but she's like in another time zone right now, like she's reliving this moment that happened, and she's telling us word by word exactly what had happened. And she was just like, was just kept saying about that they they had aliens down there, and he took her down there to show them to her, and everything is true, and just it, I could only get so much out of her. But it was just like, oh my, because she never could ever talk about that ever. And but she's got dementia, and it
Yeah, she
doesn't
doesn't.
matter whether she wants
She.
to or not. She is
Yeah.
just telling the world everything. And it I mean, she was someone with dementia. I've never like talked to someone so serious before in my life, when she was telling me about these aliens under Right Pat, and the everything that she saw down there, and everything that you know we hear about is it's true. And it's it's all under Right Pat.
So did she did she say whether they were alive or whether they were dead or anything?
She did, like, I remember her saying that they were in like a container thing. You
Okay.
know what I mean? And I don't
Hmm.
she didn't really say whether, I don't even know if I asked her whether they were alive or not. It I don't know, but I just, like, they were in like some, like, they were in a container in like liquid, and kind of just like, like you see it in the movies, more or less. It Yeah. And I should have called her dad, and and talked to him about it, because he was there with me, and he probably remembers stuff that I don't remember. But and most of the family just kind of, they just thought she was just, oh,
But
she's
none of
got
them had.
dementia.
But none of them had ever heard any of this stuff before.
No, no, like, she had never once talked about um any of that. And
Did they know she had the hots for a doctor there?
yes,
Oh, they
yes,
did know.
because
Oh, okay.
she met his grandpa not long after, like, all that had happened.
Hmm.
And the I know his grandpa didn't like when she talked about that doctor, because sometimes she would talk about him. She just, like, with her dementia, she would like tell you the same stuff over and over, and like
Hmm.
she would start talking about that doctor. But there was that one day that she let loose and started, just, that he wanted to show her something, and he took her down under Right Pat. And that's when, he showed her an alien, and that everything that we think we don't know is true or not is true. And I don't know how, I mean, she went into like enough detail, but who knows what, I mean, like, I would have loved to have known what she, like, everything she actually saw.
Look, I think that's. Look, I think it's awesome. I think it's terrible, that she had dementia, and and that's the way some people go. But I mean, you knew what was happening. Like, you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
moment, you're like, no, wait a second, this isn't, because that's not your normal. That's that's not your normal, like, well, I remember, or that somebody like didn't clean the room, or they wrecked their bicycle, or 50 years ago. I mean, that's
Right. And well, and
typically like,
I'm a nurse aide, and like um, I for the most part, like I work in the dementia unit, and like I always like I loved that unit because um I just loved like the elderly. I love the elderly, and I love the ones that have no idea what's going on. Because it was like something new every single day when I went to work. It was never the same. You didn't know what you were going to be walking into, and and I mean, I had been there's so many times where I'd go into a resident's room, and that she would call me her daughter and be like, tell me I was coming home, you coming home late drinking, and I had heard so many stories, and that's when I think like they're like living in another like time frame. Like right
yeah.
now what's going on,
Hmm.
they is not their reality. Like I wonder what they actually see, because what like when they would talk about things, it's like, okay, that's not there. We're not in your we're not in your house. We're at the nursing home. I don't know what you're seeing, but that's it. And it's crazy sometimes. Like, I mean, I've had so many conversations with people with dementia, and just and there's a difference when they start talking and telling you stuff, or between like their normal rambling on, and um that kind of stuff. It.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think everybody listening understands what you're saying. I mean, there's a big difference between somebody going on about an average mundane day that happened 50 years ago, and then an event that happened that only they would know the detail. Like, I can't imagine. I don't think somebody with dementia is making something up. You know what I'm saying? I think
Right, yeah,
everything they're
absolutely not.
talking
Like,
about is,
yeah, it's
yeah,
all
that
true. It's all happened.
it's all happened. It's just didn't have. It's not happening now, where
Right.
they believe it is, and um, that at least that part of the dementia, where
Hmm.
um, So hey, look, that I think it's fantastic. You know, not the dementia part. I
Right.
got to
Oh yeah,
reiterate
no,
that.
when she
But I
like
mean,
I'm like I and it's like, "Oh my God, I wish I would have asked her." Like I never thought to ask her
mhm.
about that before, but because she had, had dementia for a while, but it was like on and off. And then when she got sick, that's when the dementia like really kind of, came to, but it's like I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I should have, during one of her dementia episodes, I should have asked her more about, these aliens."
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the heartbreaking thing, is that if you ask her directly about them, she might not know anything. But in that moment, that's where she was living.
Oh yeah, it was like she was reliving it and telling me, it's like, and that's how they are. It's almost like they're back and they are reliving a memory, but that's actually what's happening in their mind, and like, and they know every single detail because it's like they're right back to that moment.
Wow, that that is fascinating. I mean, that's like a gift right there, is to get to hear that firsthand from somebody that was there. And you're right. Probably all that is stuff that she could not talk about forever. The
Right,
doctor,
because I mean,
the
and she wasn't even supposed to be down there to begin with.
yeah,
It was just, he was trying he
he was trying to impress her. Let's just
yeah,
be
pretty
honest,
much. Yeah.
It's like,
Yep. And and I mean, she worked there, she was a nurse, so it wasn't like he just brought some civilian onto base. Uh but and I think, she probably knew what was at risk if she was to ever tell anyone.
yeah, I'm sure.
And and um yeah, it It was, I mean, it blew me off the like out of the water that day when she brought that up, and I'm like, holy shit, that's not what I was expecting to come out of your mouth.
I will tell you right now, I am thanking you from the bottom of my heart that you shared that with us, because I think that's priceless. I think that's
Yeah.
priceless. I love that. I love that little tidbit there. So I do. I appreciate you feeling like you can share that, because that's pretty personal stuff. With somebody who is sharing a secret that they probably didn't even they didn't even realize they were sharing. So
Right.
um, I definitely appreciate that. So you know what, Megan, time has flown by, and I will tell you one thing. I am glad you listened to me tell you to send me an email, because this has turned out to be a great episode, hearing all this crazy stuff going on in Ohio. And it's just one more reason to stay away from Dayton. Just gonna be honest. but I sincerely, I thank you for reaching out, and I thank you for agreeing to come on and share this stuff, because this is great. I know people
Yeah.
will. I know people will appreciate you sharing.
Well, I thank you for getting back to me so quickly with that email. I really didn't. I'm like, he's probably got so many emails it'll be days before he even sees this. And then you had gotten back to me. I'm like, wow, okay. And and I think it's because I went so long without telling anyone, But now I'm to the point where I didn't want people to think I was crazy, but now it's to the point that I really don't care, and you know you can take it how you take it. But you weren't like they were, people, you weren't there to know what I saw and to feel like the fear that I felt, um and I just someone has to know. I can't keep it like bottled up inside anymore.
No, I'm glad that you decided it was time to share, because I appreciate it. This is this is why we do the podcast. The other guys that do it with me, they say it all the time. You know, um, the more people that come out and share stories, then it should make other people comfortable to share their stories, and then that's the only way we're going to really get answers and stuff. Like, did we get an answer about what was flying above that house that you guys saw? No, but maybe by sharing that story, somebody else from Ohio in that time period, they might have an answer, you know, or maybe we'll hear from somebody that did work at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And it's like, well, look, the cat's out of the bag. Here's the story, who knows? I mean, but it's amazing, like the domino effect, when
Yeah.
one person shares. So, and
I'm really
I,
hoping to have someone like in this area of have like a Bigfoot experience too, and that's what I'm really hoping for. But
oh, I think there's
who knows?
probably a lot. I think there's probably a lot more than what you suspect. I'll have to ask some of the people I know that get some other eyewitness reports and see what they've got from that area. But I'll bet there's way more than what you're not the only one that's had one. I'll just tell you that.
Yeah.
so so and I hope that it was a Bigfoot, not a dog man, because that's a whole
Well,
other.
I started thinking about that today after you said that, and I'm like, I told my mom, I'm like, well, he mentioned Dogman. Mom, what if it was Dogman and it wasn't Bigfoot? And that's why I was so terrified. Like, and she's like, oh my God, I hope not. And, she believes in all of that stuff with me. So, but yeah, that I'm gonna have to get
Mhm.
online and do a bunch of research now.
I like it. I like it, because I think you're gonna find some answers. That's what I think. I think you're determined enough that you're gonna find something out. So just be
Yeah. Oh, I
careful.
think I'm going out to that creek at my old house tomorrow and putting that trail cam back out and gonna search for footprints or anything I can find.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Megan, good luck, And if you find anything, let us know. I'd love to see what kind of evidence you dig up. So, and if I
Okay.
hear from anybody out there listening that's got some stuff to add to Megan's stories from that neck of the woods, get a hold of me, and I'll connect. I'll connect you with her, and we could share some stories. Maybe help get you some answers.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Megan, and we'll stay in touch. And thank you so much.
Thank you.